Ciao ragazzi, this is Katie Portanova, and you're listening to Florence and Me. I'm a lover of stories and all things Italian, and I'm going to bring you all that in this podcast. My intention is to inspire you to step out of your comfort zone and explore life and travel the world. Join me as I tell you my story and many others about Italy and my love, Florence. Andiamo! Ciao a tutti! We are back with another episode of Florence and Me. And today I thought I'd answer a travel question. I've gotten a lot of questions since the war broke out in Ukraine about travel to Europe and how is it safe? Is it, can I enjoy myself? Am I, in danger? All those questions. So this is going to be a short episode because I just kind of want to touch on some of the things that some of you are probably nervous about traveling to Europe just because of the war in Ukraine. So let me preface this whole conversation by I traveled to Italy 3 times last year. Now, I traveled right before the war broke out in January, and then 2 more times after that. So going to Italy particularly is safe. I'm going to say that. Ukraine is quite a far distance away from Italy. So if you think that, you're afraid of, all of Europe is afraid of what might happen or what, hopefully nothing happens. Let's just all knock on wood. Nothing more happens to any other country in Italy, in Europe. So with that said, I never felt unsafe. I never felt in danger while traveling through Europe because all 3 times, the first time we traveled just to Rome, and the other 2 times we made a stop in Europe, in Germany, and then made our way to Florence. So the last 2 times we had a stopover in Germany. And again, I'll say the only problem that we had, as normal things happen during, these things happen during the summer, not even if there isn't a war going on. But there were flight delays and flight cancellations. But a lot of it was having to do with the staffing issues, the ending of COVID, quote unquote, trying to keep, people in working, in some of these, airlines. But yeah, so, we had a few airline snafus where our flights were canceled and we waited in the airport for a lot longer than we would have liked. But nothing dire, nothing tragic happened where one would feel unsafe. That being said, the war in Ukraine is real. The countries around Ukraine are said to be somewhat safe, but obviously I wouldn't want to be traveling to like Poland, Hungary, what other countries that are around Ukraine, just because of what's happening in Ukraine. I also will say that Europe, in terms of terrorism, has been the safest it's ever been. Now, there's been terror attacks in Rome, in France, in Germany, and I think in every single country. But the I think what really screws up everything having to do with travel or um, visiting another country, transportation with travel, it's the media. They kind of build up a lot of fears in what people have about travel and make us think that we're in danger. Now, I'll also say that I traveled to Italy for the first time in 2002, right after 9/11. Okay. Now, that again was a time in our history where airports and air travel was the safest because of all the precautions we've taken to keep us safe in the air with security and bag checks and all that stuff. So that I should have been really scared, to be honest, but I wasn't. Um, there were that year, that 2002 was the year I studied abroad. Um, and I remember there were a lot more people, a lot more students that wanted to travel to Italy, but didn't because of 9/11. So that fear that was put into us just in general, that Americans should be scared of everything, basically, because every country is against us, according to the media, that you shouldn't travel, you shouldn't go anywhere. And that whole trip, which I just talked about in my recent blog post, changed the trajectory of my life. So if I was, taken aback by fear for that one trip, I would have never learned Italian. I would have never lived in Italy. I would have never met Stefano. All these things are because I took a chance and I took a risk. And it wasn't that risky. It was through the university. I was in no danger whatsoever. I'll just say there was no danger. But just like how we have like these stereotypes of like countries that we should be afraid of, like Colombia because of the drugs, Chile because of drugs and drug cartels. I mean, everything's probably drugs and drug cartels. Because of all the stuff we read about. And, obviously anything that's like has a good story or, I shouldn't say good story, but something that's like captivating, like tourists getting killed in Mexico. Like, personally, I don't think I'll ever travel to Mexico. And no offense to my Mexican friends, because I have a lot of Mexican friends. But I don't think I will ever go there unless I'm going to their house. Because just traveling through Mexico just scares the bejesus out of me. But again, that has to do with the media, right? Because there's so many stories about people traveling alone or traveling with friends and young girls and young people, and they get, sidetracked and they get, killed by drug cartels or, kidnapped or whatever. But anyway, that's not my point of this whole talk, this episode. But what I'm saying is that if you hold yourself back from the fear that people or the media portrays on TV, on the internet, you will never go anywhere. Like, imagine if, all we were pumped with was the war in Ukraine. Like, every single minute, every day. None of us would probably leave our homes. Because we would be afraid there would be, probably through the media saying, oh, well, they're coming for us now. Or, how many times did we think North Korea was going to, bomb us? All these things having to do with just creating a huge amount of fear among Americans and among the people around you. I mean, if you watch the news a lot, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. Because you're probably thinking right now, oh my God, I'm thinking about, oh my God, I can't fly here or there. I don't know. Maybe you're not thinking any of that. Maybe you're like, shit, I want to go to Italy. How can I go? So the war in Ukraine is horrible. the horrible earthquakes in Turkey and Syria are horrible. I want to say that I just recently watched just a couple minutes before I started this, which I just started bawling my eyes out, about the white helmets that are like hours and hours and hours. They're like digging through rubble, trying to save families and save young people and save people that are just trapped. Please think about giving to them, the white helmets. I'm going to put a link in the notes. And also the IRC, the International Rescue Committee. I love this charity. They have done so much for like refugees, all the people that were trying to escape tyranny and genocide in Africa, and they went in these boats in the Mediterranean Sea and have capsized, and like they've helped so many of these people. So the International Rescue Committee and the White Helmets, I'm going to put the links in the notes. Think about donating. It doesn't matter how much. These people are amazing that are always willing to help and going into the trenches and going into places like Ukraine that need help. And also in Turkey and Syria, like these countries need help. Yes. So anyway, little commercial there. So, but okay, so I want to just transition to the fact that, okay, a lot of us want to probably travel to Europe sometime this year or maybe next year. Okay. Maybe it's on your bucket list. It's in your, you're planning something with family, friends. I want to tell you right now that Ukraine, and I think I might have mentioned at the beginning, is very far from Italy. It's not like, like if you live in Illinois, it's not like Wisconsin. Okay. If you're in where I live, that should make more sense if I told you where I live. Northwest suburbs of Chicago. It's not like Wisconsin. Like you get to Lake Geneva. Okay. Which is about 40 minutes for those of you that have no idea where I'm talking about. It's like 40 minutes by car, maybe even a little more or less depending on traffic. Anyway, it's not close. Italians, as much as the rest of the world, are dealing with inflation, higher gas prices, everything that we are dealing with. But there's no war in Italy. It's not even in Germany. It's not in Poland. It's not in France. It's not in Spain. Not in Portugal. All these countries are safe to travel. I can say that because I was there 3 times last year and I never felt unsafe. Never once felt I was in danger. Never once felt, again, at that time when I was there, we were still kind of wearing masks. So the COVID thing is still, not going on, but people still wear masks everywhere. The ones that need to and want to. So I wasn't even thinking about the war. I was thinking about COVID still when I was there. And thankfully we have never gotten it. Knocking on wood again. Anyway, so I think that what I want to portray in this episode, which is not going to be very long. I'm not going to go on and on about this. Italy is safe. Do not take what you hear on the news as, oh my God, all of Europe is at war. No. And if you live in this perpetual state of fear and anxiety, you probably will never be able to actually live your life out. You won't visit the places you want to visit if you're always in fear. So I want to ease all your tensions right now that there's nothing to fear. I'm not going to say, but fear itself. There's nothing to fear if you plan on traveling to Italy this year or next year or years to come. Italians are excited to have tourists again. They love Americans, as I've always said. So don't stop traveling because of this horrible thing that is the war in Ukraine. Don't, and if the pandemic taught us anything, is that you only live once. You never know when your last day is. take a leap, buy your ticket, and go to Europe. Go to Italy. Go to Australia. Go to Japan. Wherever you want to go. Go. The last thing I'll say is, like, as much as, like, I'm not saying to not be careful and not be aware and not be have attention on where you are, your surroundings. Be vigilant. Make sure when you're traveling on public transportation, trains, any type of public type of transportation, just be aware. Keep your eyes open. Don't look at your phone, for Pete's sake. Like, look around you. Keep an eye on your bag. Like, all these things still happen. You still get pickpocketed. People still get things stolen. People still get attacked. People still get, not in Italy, I'm saying, but in general, like, all these things, it's just important that you stay aware. And when you come with me on a retreat, like, we are very present. The last retreat, I rarely saw them as we were out and about on their phones. Like, they're looking around, they're taking pictures, they're shopping, they're interacting with Italians. Like, it's all about just being present and knowing where you are and where you're going. Know when the next train stop is. Know when you're supposed to get off, and know which car you're supposed to be in on the train, because sometimes it's first and second class, or know where your seat is. If you're in a Frecciarossa, because Frecciarossa, they have seat assignments. Just be aware. Don't just sit anywhere. Like, be courteous, be kind, and be willing to say, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to sit there. I didn't know I got off the wrong stop. Can you come pick me up? Like, just be aware, be kind, and be willing to see things in a different lens as well. Especially when you travel abroad, especially when you're in a different culture. Don't assume that everything is going to be the same at home. It's not. It's not. Anywho, off my soapbox, but again, I'm going to say again, if you have something that you're able to give, I'm going to put the links in the notes. International Rescue Committee and the White Helmets. Give to them. They help both the war in Ukraine and the tragic earthquakes in Syria and Turkey. Be willing to give. Yeah, so buongiorno, buonasera, buonanotte, wherever you are. And I'll see you next week. A presto. Ciao, 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 ciao. I am beyond grateful for you listening to my podcast right now. I am so excited to share my journey of living abroad and all of my stories of Florence and Italy and all the places in between that I've visited. If this has reached you in any way and you would like to continue, please subscribe now. Also, go check out my website, trulyitaly.tours, for all my travel experiences. Ci si vede. Ciao.